to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Porter, and I'm joined today by Calvin Wong, board game writer and a host on the Ding and Dent Podcast. How are you doing, Calvin?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you for having me on. Hello, Unlucky Frog listeners.
Yeah, thank you. So just briefly tell us who it is you're writing for. We know you're involved in the Ding and Dent Podcast. Who is it you're writing for at the moment?
Ding and Dent mostly, and also boardgameprices.com, which is my quote-unquote day job in the board game industry, because I'm currently their content director. I'm trying basically everything that's not technical on that website I'm sort of in charge of. So, yeah.
Okay. So you, a man of many hats, as it were.
Yeah, I've had to learn a lot about like analytics and advertising and stuff like that, because the owner, Ben, he's like, okay, Calvin, just do this. I need help because I'm running so many other things in my life. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But it's been really good for me because, and it's like we were talking about before the show started, the fact that I wear many hats, have many different perspectives on the industry, was a bit of a help to what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. Sure. So you're based in Malaysia, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and for those of our listeners who are not aware, there was recently a little bit of a scandal in Malaysia as far as tabletop is concerned.
Yes,
do you want to tell us what happened, Calvin?
Okay, so in case your listeners don't know, shipping to Southeast Asia for Kickstarters, we're specifically talking about Kickstarter games. Although I guess shipping for all board games really is very expensive. Especially if you're shipping from Europe or America. Sometimes if you're shipping from China, where a lot of the games are printed, it's not as bad, but it's still it's still not great. So what happens is that a lot of the time, Malaysians, when they're buying games either through Amazon or Miniature Market or any of the other online retailers, or pertinently in this case Kickstarter, what they'll do is they'll order several copies to, like, for example, if me and you, Ben, want to have a game, we're like, that new Kickstarter looks super good, but the shipping is a bit expensive. What if we order 2 copies and we split the cost of shipping, so it's not as paying 2x shipping, it's more like 1.5x.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think Americans do a similar thing with Forge World, with Games Workshop, because that is cast exclusively in the UK, and obviously that would cost them a lot of money to ship. So yeah, it's not an uncommon thing anyway. Put it that way.
Yeah. So very commonly these arrangements are done privately. So just friends with friends, individuals with other individuals, or maybe you post on the Facebook group and says, hey, who'd like to go in on a group pledge in this game? And you get a list of names and all that kind of thing. Sometimes a store will do it, like a retail presence will say, hey, we're getting in X copies of this game. Who'd like to be on the list?
Yeah. Yeah, because you get the retail pledges on a lot of Kickstarters, right? So
yeah, that's exactly it. So if you get the retail pledges, you're saving a lot of money, not just on the shipping, but also on the actual game. Like, so you can get stuff fairly cheaply. So it's a fairly popular way of doing things over here. I don't know about other places, but over here it's very, very popular. A lot of people.
Sure.
The reason I'm telling you all this is because I want you guys to know that this practice is like standard. And it's been going on for many years, and it just works, right? Like, people get their games. If, for example, I recently backed Dinosaur Island, and then it arrived at my friend's house, and then I just drove to his house and got the game from him. And that's how it worked on that game. The Legend of Korra recently was another game that I got, and that one was shipped to a store. So the store bought in, 20 copies of the game. So I just drove to the store, paid for it, got it. Yeah, actually not paid for it at the store. You have to pay beforehand, and that's another key part of the story. So what had happened is that there was this company called Boarders Tabletop Games Cafe was a cafe. It was like a retail shop in Kuala Lumpur, that for a little while had been doing these group pledges for the Kickstarter. I had done a pledge through them before. I had gotten this game called 5 Minute Dungeon through them, and it had gone off completely without a hitch. I was very happy with the price I paid, which was something like less than 20 quid for the game.
Sure.
Yeah, which is quite a good price considering how much games normally cost here. You can expect to pay something like MSRP or 10 or 20% above MSRP for most games.
Oh yeah.
And I had done business with Boarders before, and Boarders had been picking up that side of the operation, right? Kickstarter pledges. They had been doing a lot of really popular games like Cthulhu Wars.
Yeah. So you're saying with Boarders, they're based in Kuala Lumpur. It's a big city. And they run a retail shop for analog gaming, and it's a cafe as well. So a fairly well-established community in the middle of a big city.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of why that people were willing to trust them, right? Because they had a retail presence. If you have a retail presence, that's a certain amount of capital that you've invested in the place. You're not going to risk and jeopardize your specific reputation. All of the money that you've put into the place. But what had happened was, apparently, and I don't know the details of this, which is why it's not in the article that I wrote about this. The article, by the way, is what led you to want to talk to me, right? Which is the piece that I wrote for.
Absolutely, and we'll have a link in the description to that article as well for anyone that wants to read that.
In the article, I did not say anything about their retail closing down because I didn't have details. I don't know why it closed down. I couldn't reach anyone for comment. But if in some time in 2017, late 2017, their shop closed, and I do not know why. Although one can speculate that financial difficulty may have been involved, because shortly after the shop closed, when I say shortly, in the time span of maybe a couple of months, I started to hear grumblings about people saying, "Oh, my games through Boarders are late." Like, as in the Kickstarter, the publishers had said, "Oh yeah, all our Southeast Asian games are shipped. All our Asian copies are shipped. Backers should be getting them soon. Look out for your tracking."
Yeah. And it is worth differentiating there, actually, because it's not uncommon for Kickstarters to be late. But the scenario here, as you're saying, was that this had been shipped by the Kickstarter and was not in the hands of the backers.
Yeah. So people were grumbling to Boarders saying, "Hey, where's our games?" And Boarders at first was saying like, "Oh, we've been having some issues with the shop closing. We've got some stuff to sort out. We've had to let go of some stuff." And this was all communicated to us through this instant message group, WhatsApp group that we were all. When I say we, I mean people who had given money to Boarders were part of, because what had happened was when all of these rumblings were going around, somebody started a group. With one of the owners of Boarders, started this chat group so that he could keep everybody updated in one place. So at the time that this group was set up, I had just placed another order with Boarders. This was at either the end of October or the middle of November 2017. I had just ordered Dice Hospital, which is by Alley Cat Games from the UK. Through Boarders. I paid the money, and I said, thanks for doing business. And then as part of this, I had heard from other people because when I get excited about a game, as we all know, we post about it in the Facebook group. We ask, "Oh, hey, who else is interested in this? Has anyone seen any good reviews?" We talk about it. And in the process of talking about it, this is where I believe that I first heard the rumblings about Boarders.
Yes.
And then in the WhatsApp group, we had a lot of people talking about, where's our games? What's happening to this game and that game? And then every so often you'd have a success story. Boarders would say, "Okay, we set up a meeting on the 15th, the 20th, or what have you, and we'll go." People would go and they would get their games and report, "Hey, I've received my games. Thanks, Christopher. You've come through for me, etc., etc."
Sure.
So for the first few months, when I say few months, I mean that October November period. Everything felt like it was just a company who had been having trouble, right? But they were doing their best to get out of that trouble and do good by their customers, do right by their customers. It started getting worse around December, because December, specifically before Christmas, was when Boarders promised that the delivery of one very specific game was going to come in, that game being Gloomhaven. I don't know if you've heard of Gloomhaven.
Yeah, I think if you've not heard of Gloomhaven and you have a vested interest in tabletop games, then you must have been living under a rock.
Yeah. Gloomhaven was supposed to come in. The Kickstarter update said that it had shipped to Southeast Asia, and they specifically named in the Kickstarter update that Boarders was their Southeast Asian distributor, and they said, yeah, we've shipped the games. So people who wanted their Gloomhavens were asking, hey, so when can we expect to get Gloomhaven? Because Gloomhaven was an incredibly anticipated reprint. This particular Kickstarter project that I'm talking about, whose delivery date was December 2017, was the reprint of Gloomhaven, which after its first printing was completely sold out for like 8 months to a year. People were champing at the bits to get their hands on this game, and they were dying for it because the hype was crazy. It had hit number one on Boardgame Geek. It was universal acclaim. Everyone and their mother was saying, "Oh, this game is ridiculous if you're into this kind of thing." So, myself included, had bought into the second printing Kickstarter. In fact, it was a birthday present for me from my co-host at the Ding and Dent Podcast, which I was like, because what had happened there was the second Kickstarter had come out. I was like, oh, do I really want to spend this much money on one game? And they looked at me and they were like, you know what? Shut up, Calvin. Here, happy birthday.
Oh, that was nice of them.
It was very nice of them, yeah. And so back to where we are in the story. Christmas came and went, which sucked, obviously, because a lot of us were hoping to play it over Christmas break.
Yeah.
New Year came and went. I believe that a couple of people did manage to get their copies, but not everyone. And this is when it started to feel a bit weird. Like, why are some people getting it, but not others?
Uh-huh.
Where things really came to a head was the middle of January. People were getting very angry. Things were getting quite heated in this chat group. And people were saying, like, why is there no response from Chris? And this is true. I contacted Chris many times. In fact, I'd set up 3 or 4 different meeting dates with him where I was supposed to get my Gloomhaven from him. But he either didn't respond, or the dates came and went with no answers. Like, even though it said, I don't know if you've used WhatsApp. If you guys use WhatsApp there?
I don't use it, but my wife Charlotte uses it, and loads of people use it because it's free communication, right? As long as you've got an internet connection.
So one of the features of WhatsApp is that it has seen by this delivered. The message has been delivered. The message has been seen by the person.
Yeah, it's the same idea as Facebook Messenger, isn't it? So
the messages had been read by him, but they were not being responded to.
Uh-huh.
And so there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of anger. A lot of people saying, hey, what the heck is going on? And a Facebook group was created specifically to get everybody on the same page. The idea here was just like the chat group had been created. The Facebook group was created to get everybody on the same page and update everyone at once. Instead of Christopher having to personally type to everyone, hey, by the way, your games are here. The idea was that this Facebook group, he could post one status and everybody would read it. And it was around this time that we learned about another person in this situation who was named Bruce. So apparently Bruce, and again, I didn't put this in the article because I cannot confirm any of these details, but apparently Bruce was Christopher's either business partner or co-owner of Boarders, and he was part of the Singapore operation. It is not 100% clear to me what the details are because I hear conflicting information, and without any way to verify this information, I don't want to put it in writing. You know what I mean? But the core idea is that Christopher and Bruce, they're both related to Boarders somehow, and for some reason, Christopher had said, okay, so Bruce is now in charge of the whole situation. And as part of my article, I wrote that so Bruce in February had said, okay, so things are moving along slowly but surely. We're getting. He posted this in the Facebook group. He said, slowly but surely things are moving. He posted some pictures of people unloading copies of Gloomhaven. The Gloomhaven shipping box is very distinctive. The size is enormous. Like each shipping box.
Yeah, well, it's a humongous game, isn't it?
Each box contains one copy. It's not like, you open most board game boxes like 6, 12, or 3 copies inside. It's not one box, one copy. So it was a very distinctive box. You could see Gloomhaven on the side. So it showed people unloading it from a warehouse. So we thought, oh, okay, fine. So things are moving again now that Bruce is on the case, and hope sprang eternal. So what happened was Bruce set a date with some people to give out the Gloomhaven, and this happened again. Like I said, it's weird that some people get it and some people didn't. But about 8 to 10 people, again, not sure how many, met him at a McDonald's in the parking lot and got their game. And I was messaging him saying, "Hey, can I get my game? Or is it possible for me to get one of my friends to pick it up for me, or something like that?" Right? Because at this point it's February. I was meant to have it in December. It's 2 months late. And again, no response. None. He never responded to any of my Facebook messages. And then the proverbial crap began to hit the fan, because Mighty Boards is a game publisher, posted on their Kickstarter page for this game called Petrichor. Have you heard of Petrichor?
I don't think I have, no.
Anyway, so it's a game that they released, and they posted a Kickstarter update. Let me find the date here. March 27th. So March 27th, they posted a Kickstarter update, and they said, I'm reading directly from the update. "We have some unfortunate news to share on this matter being the Asia shipment. Boarders Tabletop Cafe received the packages with the games. However, they have stopped contact with us immediately after picking up the package. We have been trying to reach them through various means. However, it seems it is unlikely that we will get to them, and we are considering this cargo, along with our down payment for fulfillment, as stolen by Boarders Tabletop Cafe and therefore lost. We are in contact with various other companies and people who are affected by this to see how we can react to this unfortunate event. We are not the only creator being affected by Boarders right now. This is quite a tough nut for us. We have lost almost $20,000 in market values to this event. But do not worry, the backers are not the ones who will be paying for this. Asian backers will still get their games." And then it goes on to talk about more details about this. You can go and read this on the Petrichor Facebook page, Kickstarter page. Petrichor being Petrichor.
Okay. Again, we'll have a link to that in the description, and people can browse that at their convenience. But yeah, some quite damning words there.
Sure. Once that happened, the chips started to fall, right? People were like, so what the heck is happening? So I believe, I cannot 100% confirm this off the top of my head, but I believe it was this event which was the impetus for a lot of people to start emailing other publishers and asking, what's the situation with Boarders? Like, can you talk to us directly and say what is happening with Boarders? And a lot of publishers came back to say, Boarders, we never received any money from them for this Kickstarter game for our Kickstarter, even though that we Boarders customers had paid Boarders the money. I'll give you a specific example, which was my experience with Dice Hospital. So remember I said that I had paid money for Dice Hospital back in October, which is when the end of the Kickstarter ran. Yes. I contacted Alley Cat Games just this week, and they said no record of payment received from Boarders. This was 6 months after the fact. So basically, they, for a period of time lasting at least from when they had a retail presence until they stopped having a retail presence, and even further, that would be beyond that, they had been taking money from customers for Kickstarter pledges and then not pledging the money.
Right. So that this is it becomes a whole different ball game from incompetence there, then, doesn't it? Because the implication there is that there's been a degree of premeditation.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just one company, right? If you see in my article, there's confirmed reports from at least 10 companies, and that's the ones we know about. And these are major games publishers who said, no, we have no record of any transaction from Boarders or in some cases, and this was what was interesting, a record of, we've backed the Kickstarter for $5, and we're supposed to upgrade it later in Pledge Manager, which is something that you do sometimes, right? Like you can back for $1, and then later you upgrade it in the Pledge Manager to get your, you pay if you upgrade your pledge from $1 to $100 or $60 or however much money it is. So at least one company reported that they had received this initial pledge, but it was never upgraded. At least one company said that that Boarders had paid them in full, but never took possession of the shipment, which is weird.
Yeah. So you've got some instances like the one you just mentioned previously, where no pledge was ever made to the Kickstarter, which is that's quite cut and dry. They've obviously money's been stolen from customers and that.
Yeah, that constitutes fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you've got some instances which just smack of a complete lack of competence.
If you sort of look at, maybe if you think about it and you sort of reconstruct the timeline roughly, it could have been that things were going okay for Boarders. They were delivering games, they had been doing, the thing. And after a while, they ran into some kind of trouble. It's possible. Again, I can't confirm this. I don't know, because their shop closed down. And they did maybe go through, like you said, an issue of competence. And then the competence just sort of slowly slid into, hey, actually, we're in financial trouble. Again, purely speculation. This is all alleged, right? We're in financial trouble.
Yep.
But we've got all these people giving us money and continuing to give us money for this service that we used to perform. And again, this is entirely speculation. I cannot speak to what is in anybody's mind. But the fact that, as late as October, which is when I gave them money, and already people at that time had been complaining that their games were not being given to them, indicates that at the time that they knew that they were having issues with orders, they were still taking money for new orders. So that's the gist of the situation. Currently, April right now, when we're recording this, there's nothing new to report, because basically there's no way to contact them. What we in KL have been doing is we've been filing police reports, and we're trying to get the Consumers Tribunal involved to hopefully get legal recourse. Because the thing about this is, we paid money in the expectation that we would receive products, but the products were never paid for. So the publisher can't. I mean, what's the publisher of the game supposed to do? I paid for example, Cthulhu Wars, but the Cthulhu Wars money never reached the publisher of Cthulhu Wars. What are they supposed to do? Give me a copy of Cthulhu Wars? I mean, it would be great if they did, but I understand why, with the margins in this industry the way they are, it's incredibly prohibitive. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For them to just be giving out, especially shipping to Malaysia copies.
It's a big ask, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said obviously that there's been some police reports filed and things like that, but so far there's no reports of any action against Boarders or the people that were involved in it, Bruce or Chris.
No, not at this time, because the whole police report situation only really started happening, within the last couple of weeks. It's a very unsatisfying ending. Yeah.
As a journalist, you've laid out quite a detailed picture for us of what's happened. But what are your personal feelings on the matter?
I mean, obviously, having your birthday present stolen sucks. It sucks. There's no way around it. It was really upsetting. I was very upset. But I prefer to look at the upside, and the upside of all of this was when people found out what had happened, the whole border situation, and when they found out that my games had been stolen, people started chipping in. They started giving me, donating, I guess, small amounts of money, a few dollars here, a few dollars there, in some cases, substantially more, um, to help, to just help with this, to help me out with this thing that has happened. I mean, I'm very grateful to everyone who's agreed to help me out. In fact, like one of my local friends, he's agreed to, because he lives near Singapore and there's a board game shop in Singapore that has a copy of Gloomhaven like available. He's agreed to,
Okay.
when he returns home next month for the election. We're having an election soon. When he returns home next month for the election, he's going to take the copy of Gloomhaven back up to me. So I only have a little bit longer left to wait, and I'll finally have my birthday present. Like literally a year after my birthday, it's my birthday. Yeah, at long last. Yeah,
Better late than never.
yeah. It's true. It's true. So I mean, okay. So there is a slightly happy ending for me, in that I did get one of my games. I will be pre-ordering the other game, Dice Hospital, because I think it's a heck of a dice drafting game, and um, and hopefully my personal hope, and one that was echoed by a lot of people, the locals here that I talked to for this piece, and just sort of talked to in conversation, they just really want to get their money back. Like nobody I spoke to ever really said anything about, oh, we want damages, or we want to sue the crap out of them, or we want to make sure they burn in hell. None of that really. The worst thing that they said was they hoped that people would know about what they had done and the practices that they had undertaken.
Uh-huh.
And even then, some people said to me, like, if they just give me my games and my money back, I'm just willing to call it square. They're not after, they're not out for blood.
Yeah, which is very, very generous in the face of what happened. When you're part of a community, it almost stings a bit more. When it's the betrayal that stings more than the loss of finances or property, I think. Especially when we talk so often about how inclusive and welcoming tabletop communities are. And I suppose the fortunate thing is that stories like this are very few and far between.
Yes, actually, yes.
It's no less hurtful to the people involved, I suppose.
Yeah. I can definitely say that, because it came from people who we considered also part of the hobby, rather than, oh, here's a sort of faceless corporation who's just taking our money. It did. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think that about covers all we have to say on the Boarders case for the moment, but we'll be sure to keep an eye on that. And thank you very much for joining us today, Calvin, to talk about it. And hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast under happier circumstances in the future.
That would be nice. Maybe we can talk about Gloomhaven.
Yeah, well, we're hoping to play it soon. One of our listeners, who's since became a friend, we actually met him at a compulsion in Edinburgh yesterday. He's got a copy, and he wants to play it with us, because we just couldn't get a copy anywhere.
Maybe you know who else you should talk to, actually? Go talk to Alley Cat Games, because they're in the UK. They're doing a lot of really exciting stuff at the moment.
Well, I'll maybe check and see if they're going to be at UK Games Expo, because...
Oh, you're going to UKGE?
Yeah, I am. I was actually speaking to Richard Denning, who's one of the organisers yesterday, and he was saying that they're going to be releasing the full list of all of the retailers that are going to be there to the press, so we can start deciding who we want to speak to and when. But yeah, well, that about wraps up this episode, folks. Thank you again, Calvin, for joining us. Make sure to check out the Ding and Dent podcast.
And boardgameprices.com, which does service the UK.
And for all of you listening, whether you're on the bus, at work, or at home, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks, Ben. Bye.
Hi everyone, it's Charlotte from the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Now be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. All you need to do is search Unlucky Frog Gaming. You can also show your support for The Unlucky Frog through Patreon. To find out more information, check out our website, www.unluckyfrog.com. Thanks, bye!